Dr. Roohi Jeelani, an infertility specialist and co-director at the Vios Fertility in Chicago. I just want to point out, not only do you help families who are trying to conceive, but you are as well, and you got the vaccine.
Yes, I am. I'm currently a fertility patient / doctor, and I did get the vaccine.
So let me start just with the big, before I get into your personal story, the overarching question. Is there evidence that the vaccine hurts women's fertility?
No, there's no evidence that the vaccine hurts women's fertility. Actually, there's no evidence to even show that it can impact women's fertility.
Is there any evidence that the vaccine impacts women's menstrual cycle? I've heard people say that both it stops their menstrual cycle, or that in menopausal women it causes breakthrough bleeding.
There's no evidence that supports that it can alter your menstrual cycle at all, whether you're perimenopausal, premenopausal, or in a reproductive age group.
Is there evidence it impacts men's fertility?
No, there is no evidence that it affects males' fertility. There's actually a recent article that was published that compared semen analysis before and after the vaccine, and there's no impact at all.
I heard people write in saying they're concerned it could impact the placenta or a developing fetus if a pregnant woman gets the vaccine.
That's a great question. So I love myth busting this, because one of the reasons they said that, well, maybe it can impact the placenta is because the protein that you need to build the placenta, they said, mimics the mRNA protein. However, it's not true, because the mRNA, anything used in this vaccine, the COVID vaccine, is not live, and it does not impact placentation, and it does not cause miscarriages.
So what you're saying is there is no interaction between the vaccine and your menstrual cycle, having a baby, or any aspect of fertility?
Correct.
So why are these stories out there?
I think because people don't understand what it does, where it stems from. So it's almost a fear, like, what if, right? So you have one person selling telephone, like, hey, I think it could do this. And then it starts changing. I truly think that's where it stems from, because when you really look at data before and after, very good example of being the semen analysis, there was no difference in semen parameters before or after the vaccine, and that's immediate. So patients on here, questions on here say, how do you know that? How do you know long-term effects? Sperm is a great study, because males have the ability to regenerate sperm at 30 to 90-day intervals. So if it was going to impact your sperm, you would see an immediate effect that at that 90-day interval after your vaccine. And the fact that we don't shows you that, hey, there's no effect of the vaccine.
You also, as a doctor, speak to how the reproductive system is separate from sort of the immune response system. Yeah. How unlikely it would be that a vaccine would impact fertility.
Correct. So remember, reproductive organs, especially for females, our eggs sit in that little basket called an ovary, and we ovulate that one egg a month. That doesn't mean we don't have that month. We're born with all of our eggs. So everything that we're exposed to throughout our life has been there. Vaccines do not modulate that system, that ovarian reserve. You don't see a decline, you don't see an increase, they're just there. Our immune system is important when you're pregnant. Yes, there's theories that, yeah, maybe your immune system goes down, or maybe your immune system goes up. We don't know yet. Those are very hypothetical. We do know there's a fine balance between the mom and baby to nurture the embryo, because the embryo is not all of us, but that the vaccines do not cause dysregulation in that. In fact, vaccines cause us to mount a response to build immunity. So if anything, they're building your immune system.
In fact, this is anecdotal, but the actress Emmy Rossum posted that she got the vaccine while she was pregnant, and she just gave birth to a healthy baby girl who has antibodies herself now.
Yeah.
Have you seen cases like that?
Yes, that's one of the biggest reasons why we've been saying get the vaccine, because we know the vaccine has not been tested and tried in younger children and infants. If there's something that you can do as a mom and protect your newborn, especially with the Delta variant, like you're saying, that, and the unpredictability of this vaccine, then why not?
Are you advising your pregnant patients to get vaccinated?
I am. Actually, one of the first questions I ask my patients, especially even at our new patient appointment, is, are you vaccinated? What are your thoughts? And let me help break some of these myths, because like you said, half of the US is still not vaccinated, and majority of these unvaccinated patients are younger patients.
Now, did you pause before you thought of getting a vaccine because you want to conceive?
I was in the middle of treatment, and I'm just like any human. So it came out, it was offered to me in January while I was right in the middle of treatment. And I was like, do I do this? Do I not? There's so much information out there. And at that time, ASRM had not released a recommendation statement. ASRM is the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, and there was no statement from OB-GYN. So the minute they released the statement after studying the pharmacokinetics and the science behind it, and I got it at the end of January is when I got my vaccine.
That's great. And you've had no issues?
No issues.
I just want to look at some of, what is it that you hear most often in your office from patients? What kinds of questions do they bring up?
I think the biggest fear, surprisingly, is not the infertility aspect, because most patients are here for infertility, and that's what I thought I would hear, but it's a miscarriage fear. That fear of that placenta myth that we were just discussing, that protein interacts with the placenta and I'm going to miscarry. And I always try to debunk that and tell them it's quite the opposite. Initially, there was some data to show that COVID in itself can cause an increased risk of a miscarriage because it does spike that high fever. And if you do get that sick, you're putting yourself up at that risk.
So taking the risk of getting COVID is more dangerous for your developing fetus than getting the vaccine.
Exactly.
What do you say to people? Just, you must hear this as a doctor all the time. Well, you see the data, but I have a friend who swears her period stopped after she got the vaccine. I get that in my DMs. How do you respond to that? How do you
I always tell them that it's easy because as humans, we tend to point out things that are in common. And my best analogy is when you buy a new car, you start seeing everyone around you have that car. So you hear the myth that COVID causes cycle irregularities. Shoot, I got my COVID vaccine. It must be the reason why my cycle is irregular. When there's so many reasons. And if you really look and understand, our cycle can be plus or minus 7 days. So instead of kind of being on the defensive saying, well, that's not it, did you look at other things? They say, well, did you know a normal cycle can be plus or minus 7 days? Then I always get, yeah, but I'm always spot on. I'm like, well, sometimes stress and sometimes life and sometimes a shift in anything around you in the environment can alter that plus or minus 7, but that's still regular.
You're very calming. Thank you.
Oh,
that's what I think of, which is stress, right? Stress can really alter a cycle, and certainly we're all experiencing that right now.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to underscore, you had mentioned the semen study, and I just want to say again, even though sperm is constantly created, and in theory that could be impacted, there's literally no evidence of it.
Literally no evidence of it.
If you had a message to deliver to young women who want to conceive, or young men also, as we face down the barrel of the Delta variant, what would it be?
My biggest take home is, there's one thing you can do to protect your baby, because I know as parents, as young parents, that's what we want, right? Like watching a child suffer, probably one of the most painful things ever, that by getting the vaccine, you have that ability. You're empowering yourself to then protect your child. Like I would give anything to give my toddlers the antibodies so they can be protected. It's a scary world out there. And every day we wake up and, one day there's no masks, the next day there's masks. And it's unpredictable just because we don't know how it's trending. So if we can protect ourselves, masks up, get the vaccine, and let's end this, because I'm sure everyone's tired of it.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I covered this in case I didn't ask. I asked, have you seen evidence of pregnant moms giving birth to a baby who gets the who has the protection because she got the vaccine? Have you ever seen a case where the vaccine can be linked to a problem?
No, not any. Yeah, not the COVID vaccine, not any vaccine. The COVID vaccine's newer technology where it's using mRNA, which is not a live vaccine, which is even better, because sometimes with a live vaccine, it does mount the actual infection to where you would delay getting pregnant or wait till your body comes down. And sometimes I wonder, is that where it's stemming from? Because when like MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella came out, which is a live vaccine, yeah, sure, you don't want to get pregnant while you're taking that, but you can't literally translate that into another technology and say the COVID vaccines the same way.
So to recap, the vaccine does not impact fertility. It does not impact your cycle. It doesn't impact a developing fetus. And in fact, getting it while pregnant can confer protection to the baby.
Yes.
And your other biggest point is getting Delta would be worse.
Exactly.
Could be damaging.
Exactly. And if you can protect yourself and your unborn child. And another thing I've been seeing as a fertility doctor are a lot of my patients with the fear of, if I get the vaccine, I have to wait 3 months. Once again, I think it's stemming from previous history, but you do not have to wait. You can get the vaccine tandemly and start treatment and do treatment.
So you can start, that's a good question. I did get that. You can start the vaccine and start fertility treatment. What if they're trying to get pregnant naturally? Should they wait to get pregnant and then get the vaccine?
No, get the vaccine and while you're trying.
Okay. This is so helpful. Thank you so much for debunking these myths. Would you tell people where they can find you?
Yes. My name is Dr. Roohi Jeelani, and I'm a doctor at Vios Fertility in Chicago. And you can find me on any social media platform with Roohi, Roohi, and Jeelani, Jeelani, MD.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeelani, for your time and for your work.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Jessica Yellin. If you like this video, please click subscribe, and you can click the bell to get notifications when we post new content. Thanks for watching.